Hello, and welcome to the Brutal Iron Gym podcast, where our goal is to cut through the BS and deliver the brutal truth about topics related to health and happiness. Today's podcast number 2052. The topic is training, and the title is 12-Week Prep for Bench Press 1 Rep Max. A listener and fellow coach asked my thoughts towards he actually wrote a 13-week prep, but that's a little bit of an odd number. So I picked 12 for today's podcast. And by the time he hears this, he'll have missed a week since he asked me, so he'll have 12 weeks left. So if he wants to try any of these elements, this would be an appropriate time frame for him. Now, he's an elite lifter. He doesn't need my opinion, but I appreciate that he asked for it. So I thought it'd be fun to share via a podcast. I actually just had an athlete compete this past week, and she set the national record for bench for her weight class. And I have two athletes competing at the end of this month. One is a female. She's elite total. Before, we've gone from first meet ever to an elite total together. She's drug tested. She'll be competing around 150s, somewhere in there in the body weight, and she'll be benching over 200 pounds. I have a male athlete who'll be competing at the end of this month. Again, elite total. He has, I think, over 500 dots. He's crazy strong, drug tested. He actually also is in the 150s body weight, and he'll be benching over 350 pounds. Very, very, very strong human beings. So I wanted to share my thoughts, a general approach that I would use. For all my clients I work with, I cap the number of people I work with because all of their programming is 100% unique to them. I don't pre-template anything. So what I'm going to discuss in today's podcast would be my thoughts towards an approach. But how I apply those thoughts per athlete is different. We'll have different variations depending on how they respond to different variations, different volumes, and different training frequencies and things like that. But there is still an overriding or overreaching over whatever guiding theme to how we would approach it. So I want to present that in today's podcast. Now, the first thing I do with anyone, especially when we're 12 weeks out from a competition, would be to tighten up nutrition. Our nutrition is insanely important. You should always be paying attention to that. Training is a stimulus for change. Nutrition is how your body actually meets that change. So when we train, we stimulate the body to get stronger. But through what we provide in nutrition is how the body actually makes those strength increases. So if I want bigger muscles, I got to eat protein and calories to fuel the muscle building process. If I want to get stronger, I need to fuel the nervous system response. So nutrition should be underlyingly all the time given some attention. But then as we get closer to competitions, we really want to dial that in because it's important not only to maximize the adaptations we're trying to create in training, but it keeps you safe as well. Since you're getting closer to a competition, getting closer to a 1 rep max, you're going to be increasing the risk associated with lifting, since it's going to be getting so much heavier and very near, if not actual maximal amount of what you can actually do. So we want to protect ourselves, and that's extremely, extremely important. It's part of just longevity in lifting, let alone if you compete in powerlifting or anything like that. It's just how do you stay safer for longer? There are training concepts, but overwhelmingly what people miss is the nutritional benefit, the nutritional concepts. So calorie-wise, it depends on your body weight and the weight class. If you need to cut weight, I would suggest listening to podcast 1239. The title of that podcast is Cut Water Weight for a Competition, like how to cut water weight for a competition. So I actually go through and I'll explain all of that in podcast 1239. If you can't get back that far on whatever podcast platform you're on, you can go to our website, www.brutalirongym.com. Scroll down on the homepage. There's a podcast player that goes back 300 episodes, but then there are instructions under that podcast player on how to find older podcasts. So you can listen to podcast 1239 and learn how to cut water weight to get into the competition and hit the right weight. But in general, you want to avoid a caloric deficit going into the powerlifting competition as much as possible, so that because if you're in a caloric deficit, it slows down training adaptations. You're just going to get less progress from your training, and it makes you more susceptible to injury. Now, it's typical to have to do like weight cuts. I had an athlete just compete last week, the one that set the national record for bench. She had to cut down to 123 pounds from 130-ish. Now, we didn't cut calories, we didn't cut carbs, we didn't cut water or anything until the last couple of days. So we had already made it through our heavy training. We made it through the time in which we would be adapting to the stimulus of training. And then the last few days, we cut out carbs, cut out sodium, cut out water, boom, made it for weight, and she did great. So that's the idea, is learning how to manipulate water retention. And that's how you actually want to make weight, not doing caloric deficits to where you're cutting body fat and in this chronic under-recovered state as you lead into a competition. Then protein, generally going to be around 1 gram per pound of body weight. There's going to be more or less depending on training intensity and frequency, but if you want a ballpark number, that would be a good number to go for. Timing-wise, we want to have carbs leading into training. Bench press training is going to be more carb dependent than it would be fat dependent. So there's a lot of nutritional theories when it comes to how people would eat for strength and yada, yada, yada. But in general, you want to consume your energy nutrients, whether you're doing carbs or fats. You want to consume your energy nutrients peaking into the training session. And then coming out of the training session, you would bring those back down, but you would make sure that your protein was peaked. So that way you can maximize recovery and adaptation. And then hydration, we want to make sure we stay hydrated. Hydrated muscles are healthy muscles. So aim for, at minimum, half your body weight in ounces per day, but I would definitely be up closer to like 1 ounce per pound of body weight. Okay, so now we went through nutrition. The reason why I wanted to start there was, though, is it's incredibly impactful, and overwhelmingly, when I work with very high-level athletes, that's often the component that's missing the most. They're usually doing relatively well in training. We have to, critique a few things, fix a couple things, but nutrition is usually the thing that's way off or more off, and then that's what we look at first. Now, training-wise, if we're starting for 12 weeks out, I like to program in 4-week waves. This makes more work for myself, but I like it because I believe it produces the best results. So I'm willing to do more work per client. So I've seen trainers or programs written for 8, 12, or even 16 weeks where everything's kind of predetermined. And can that work? Sure. Is it optimal? Hell no. I would be willing to bet if anybody were to use a 12 or 16 week program pre-written and then do a competition where you have 12 to 16 weeks where the program is customized per 4 weeks, you're going to get a much better result. Much better result. So I write every 4 weeks, so that means we stay with movements 4 weeks in a row, and then we switch if we need to or if we want to. So maybe we're doing, reverse band bench press. We would do that for 4 weeks, and then we would analyze how we did on that and adjust anything if we want to. Maybe we switch to, dropping the reverse band, but we do close grip. And that gives us a little bit of a different stimulus. We progress that for 4 weeks. So I write programs every 4 weeks. That is definitely what I recommend, even if it is more work. So the first 4 weeks, essentially what I want to look at in our bench press workouts is going to be the main lift, which is going to be bench press, and then our accessories. The main lift in the first 4 weeks of a 12-week prep, I'm going to do a very aggressive effort. I'm going to pick an overloaded variation of bench press, which means it's some kind of variation of bench that allows me to lift more weight and or reps and or volume in some way than a standard typical competition barbell bench press variation. I'm going to overreach this variation, meaning I'm going to push to the highest amount of volume and intensity that the person could do without getting an injury. And I'm going to make all of that specific to their weakness. So for example, chest. If their chest is the weak body part, I actually commonly will do chest flies as a pre-exhaust to bench press work. I do this for myself, and it's worked excellently. I have broken my collarbone 3 times in my life. I have metal plates in my collarbone, and I have some other injuries. I have really bad shoulder injuries related to when I was younger playing football. I popped both my shoulders out of place and tore up some stuff. So I have had a lot of injuries that would impact my bench press, but I've still benched over 400 pounds in competition before. So I've benched way more than that in the gym, but competition standard, over 400 pounds, I think it was like 420, somewhere in there, I forget. But that allowed me like variations and techniques such as like chest fly pre-exhaust work, which is something you think of as like bodybuilding work. It is exceptional stuff for maximizing strength while minimizing joint stress. And these are techniques I've learned and applied over time, but I've also seen mimicked in variations in programming such as Josh Bryant's program. And if you don't know who Josh Bryant is, and you're listening to a bench press podcast, you're missing out. So go look for Josh Bryant on YouTube. He's under the handle Jailhouse Strong. So Jailhouse, Jail, like jail, House Strong. His name is Josh Bryant. He was like the youngest person ever to bench press 600 pounds at a time. He has since helped his own clients beat that record. And he's coaching like the top bench presser in the world right now, and probably, maybe 5 or 6 out of the top 10. So tons of good information there. And he does things like this all the time. He does the same kind of strategies, and it helps people not only get stronger, but it helps longevity. So if somebody has chest weakness, we would do chest flies, and I typically will do cable flies or even dumbbell flies. I like cable flies or floor flies, dumbbell floor flies, like dumbbell flies on the floor are amazing and excellent as well. But we would do chest flies, and then we would do, say, reverse band bench press. Reverse band bench press is definitely, it's an odd combination. But what I like about the combination of chest flies before reverse band bench press is you get more chest than you would think out of reverse band bench press, because as the weight is coming off your chest, the banded assistance is becoming less. You would think that means your triceps are going to end up being like overworked and they're going to take the brunt of the effort. But actually, if you set up the bands correctly, which I do with my clients, is the tensional load starts to become increased while you're still in the chest. So as you come out of the chest reflex, at the bottom, the chest stretch reflex, you're still loaded into the chest as the bar starts to become heavier. So it actually, it creates a harder intensity contraction in the chest to get you through that mid-range, so then the triceps can take over. So reverse band bench press, when somebody has weakness in their chest, if you pre-exhaust it with chest flies, then do reverse band bench press, and make sure you do like a pause at the chest. So not just a bounce, don't just bounce the bar off your chest. Do a pause and then a drive, and oh my gosh, your chest is going to be lit up. So it's going to be really good. Tricep work, I'm a big fan of Spoto press. Eric Spoto was one time the world bench press holder, raw bench press holder, and he did bench press variations where he would pause about an inch or two off the chest on every rep. So he would come down to the bottom, pause an inch or two off the chest, and then explode to the top, come down, pause an inch or two off the chest, explode to the top. Now, this was actually very cleanly done, so it's not just shitty bench press technique where they can't touch their chest. It was with a pause, everything was controlled, and you actually do it with a little bit of a close grip, like a little bit of a narrower grip, usually 1 or 2 finger widths narrower. So it's about 1 inch, 1 to maybe 2 inches narrower than normal. And I've even reverse banded that, and good God, your triceps will be lit up. So that's really good. But we don't pre-exhaust that one with chest flies. You would do that one fresh. So those are variations of overload, because you're going to be using heavier weight than you normally would with the reverse band assistance. But it's specific to your weakness, and it's an overreaching concept, meaning we're going to be pushing like 4 or 5, even 6 top sets, and lots of warm-ups, lots of volume. So you're really just trying to like bury the muscles, absolutely bury them, and get them behind in recovery. Not enough to get injured, but enough to where you're like going in each week and going like, holy freaking crap, I'm hoping to make it through this one with some form of progression, because I'm still freaking dead from last week. But that idea in the main lift is extremely important in the first 4 weeks. The accessories, we do kind of the opposite. We want underloaded variations, and we're going to be more isolative in nature, and this counters the connective tissue, joint stress, muscle stress, CNS stress of the main lift. So instead of like weighted dips, I would do overhead tricep extensions. Instead of heavy dumbbell chest presses, I would do like cable crossovers, things like that. And you're still looking for a good volume, good intensity, so 3 to 4 top sets with some good warm-ups. So that's what I would do in the first 4 weeks. Then the middle 4 weeks, we're going to kind of flip those. The main lift, we're going to drop down to underloaded variations, and we're not really going to isolate out a weakness. We're going to try to, you can, and there's nothing wrong with that necessarily, but since it's underloaded, we don't want to make it even more isolative and make it harder to where it underloads it even more. What an underload is it's a bench press variation, and it could be for squats or deadlifts or anything, but it would be a variation of the lift that causes you to reach fatigue at a lighter weight than a normal barbell variation of that lift. So if we're talking about bench press, it would be a variation of bench press that's harder than a typical competition bench press. And that's going to make you fatigue at a lighter weight load than you typically would with regular, just straight barbell bench press. The idea of doing that is it allows the actualization of the previous 4 weeks. What this means is the first 4 weeks, you're not getting to the end of week 4 and then your body's fully recovered. And your body has fully made all the adaptations that we wanted from the first 4 weeks. Hell no. You're going to get to the end of the first 4 weeks and be buried. It will actually take 2, 3, even 4 weeks for the body to make the full completion of the adaptations we wanted from the first 4 weeks. And it only does that if we give it the space, the recovery capacity space to do so. So the main lift, we switch over to an underloaded variation. That underloads the recovery demand, which then creates space for the actualization of the first 4 weeks. So then you end the second 4 weeks and you're back to being fresh, but now you've super compensated from where you started in the beginning of the whole program 8 weeks ago. And your CNS is much higher, strength is much higher, physical strength, plus also just your like nervous system adaptation strength. So you want to give the middle 4 weeks for the body to actualize the first 4 weeks. So the main lift, we do an underloaded variation. We still do a good amount of volume, so still 4, 5, 6 top sets, but since it's a lighter weight load, you're going to get that extra recovery capacity allowed to actualize the first 4 weeks. Then in the accessories, we can go ahead and switch to more normal lifts. So like more compound lifts, so you can actually do dips, you can do dumbbell presses, you can do machine presses. Since we underloaded the main lift, there is that recovery capacity allowance for us to push the accessories up a little bit. And we're still going to do the normal amount, so 3 to 4 kind of top end sets. Then the final 4 weeks, the main lift just switches to competition, just typical barbell competition with good pause, follow all the commands in your training. We're just going to be doing singles. Typically, I would work up to 3 to 4 top singles with really the last 1 or 2 being like truly maximal. And in that training, we're really just looking to stimulate, not annihilate. We just want to go right to the edge of what the body can do that day and then walk away. Right to the edge of what the body can do that day and walk away. We want to stimulate some progression, but we're not trying to annihilate the body. We're not trying to beat it up. So the first 4 weeks, we destroy the body. The middle 4 weeks, it's going to feel like it's destroyed still, but we're actually allowing it to recover. And then you actually start to feel amazing around weeks 8 to 10. And then you're just doing some singles. You're getting under some high-end, top-end weights. And now you get ready for that meet in week 12, and you're like, well, I'm freaking ready to rip someone's head off. I'm ready to kill this thing. So typically weeks like 4 to 8, you're going to feel like you're dead and you can't lift anything. You're going to be doubting if you can even do 80% of your max at the upcoming meet. Then weeks like around week like 8 to 10, so 2 to 4 weeks away from the competition, you're going to be like feeling amazing. But now you coming out of that time period of feeling like doubt. So often I have clients that'll break from their program, which I don't approve of. So if you're listening to this, please stop doing that. It makes my job harder. But they'll break from the program and they're like, well, I just had to test my max because I wanted to make sure I could do, what I wanted to do at the meet. So I might have them, let's say, for example, we're going to go for you can't do 405 in a powerlifting competition because you use kilograms. So let's say 402. And the heaviest we've done in training in a while on a straight bar has only been like maybe 365, and they felt buried by it. So now all of a sudden, 2 to 4 weeks before the competition, they're feeling amazing. And I might have them programmed only to go up to 385. And they're like, oh, man, I just felt really good. I was really nervous. I wasn't sure how I was going to do at the meet. So I went ahead and I tried 402 and I got it. And I'm like, congratulations, but what the hell are you doing? You just took a big chunk out of the CNS, and we were saving that. We were trying to save that feeling so we could maybe hit 402 or more at the meet. But now that you just, beeped up the program, bleep up the program, now I have to fix things, and now we can only hope to maybe hit 402 at the meet. So please stop going off programs just because you feel good. You're supposed to feel good. Don't do that. So wait till meet day. But that is how people typically feel is, 6, 8 weeks, like 4, 6, 8 weeks from the competition, feel like crap. You're going to worry that you can't do anything at the meet. Then 2 to 4 weeks before the meet, you feel amazing. Please don't go off program and try some crazy, stupid stuff. Wait for the meet to do the stupid, fun stuff. Okay? But that's typically the process. So the final 4 weeks, just a bunch of singles on the main lift. Accessories, we go back to underloaded variations, so back to isolative machines and cable work. Typically, 4 weeks out, typical normal volume, 3 to 4 working sets. 3 weeks out, we're going to drop to 2 sets. 1 week out, we're going to drop to 1 set. Then the final week, we're not going to have any accessories at all. So you're allowing the body to recover and feel like $1,000,000 basically on meet day. So that's the overall approach that I use is weeks 8 to 12 out, you're going to bury the main lift, some crazy, aggressive, insane variation. Then weeks 4 to 8 out, you're going to underload the variation of the main lift, allow the body to recover and actualize the training that we wanted from the first 4 weeks. Then the final 4 weeks, you're just going to test some maxes and just refine technique, refine form, get your commands right and everything. So is this the only approach that works? Hell no. There are definitely people who have been successful with other approaches. But this is the approach that's worked hundreds of times for me, for hundreds of athletes that I've coached, and we've achieved hundreds of records, literally, state and national records. And we've been able to do it, keep people injury-free, and they've been progressing, over 5+, 10+ year lifting careers. I don't know if I wouldn't want to say I pride myself because it has nothing about me, but a main focus I want with my clients is I don't want them to set records, but then a year or two later have so many injuries they can't lift weights anymore. Or a year or two later be so burned out mentally and emotionally that they don't want to work out anymore. I want people to have lifelong happiness and lifelong results. And I have unfortunately seen this happen firsthand to people I know and have seen in my local community where they push themselves super hard for, 5 years, 3 to 5 years. They get some major injuries. Maybe they do some big things, but then they're not even working out anymore. Or they're the ones that I don't squat anymore. It's bad for your knees. And it's not really. If you weren't a jackass in how you did your squats, it wouldn't have been so damn bad for your knees. So there are going to be times where you overreach, you get small tweaks, small annoyances. That's just kind of the nature of the sport, is you're always trying to find that edge. So every once in a while you take a tiptoe over. But it should only be a tiptoe. It should only be a small little bump in the road, something you can recover in, 12 weeks or less. If you're having major injuries, major issues, major mental, emotional burnout, you're probably using a program that is not proper for longevity. So I would encourage you to try a different program. But this is what I've used. This is an approach that I would use for my clients with a 12-week prep. I love this way of doing it because they end up feeling amazing and they stay injury-free. So what the hell is better than that, right? So if you want to learn more about bench press variations, because I mentioned how we would switch over to overloaded and underload variations and things, podcast 1616, so 1616, podcast 1616, is titled Bench Press Variations for Strength Development. And again, you can find those older podcasts. Go to our website, scroll to the podcast player that's available on the homepage. Right underneath that are instructions for older podcasts. So, hopefully this was helpful not only to the listener and friend who asked, but also to anybody else that's thinking about getting ready for a 1 rep max and you want to kind of give yourself some time to prep for it. 12 weeks is plenty of time to prep for a 1 rep max and do exceptionally well. Actually, funny enough, I just helped somebody do that. They hadn't lifted heavy in bench pressing for like 6 or 7 years. Their wife was getting ready for a meet, and they're like, hey, dude, do you think I could set the state record? And I was like, hell yeah. And I think we had like maybe 9 weeks, and they went and set the state record, even though they haven't been lifting heavy bench in like 7 years. So we use variations like this. Actually, they just did Spoto press the whole way up to the meet. They never even did a basic barbell competition lift until the meet day because they already had familiarity with it from us previously working together. But funny side story is people can prep for sure in 12 weeks. We've done even less. Okay, if you have any questions, if you need anything, reach out on the website. If you go to www.brutalirongym.com, on the bottom of the homepage, scroll all the way to the bottom, and there's a contact form. You can send me any message you want at any time. I answer everybody's emails within 2 weeks. If you have sent me something and you haven't heard from me in 2 weeks, I probably didn't see your email. I apologize. Maybe it went to my spam. So just follow up and send it again if you don't mind. But I appreciate everybody that reaches out. It's fun to hear from all the different places across the world that people listen to this. And this is insane. We have a third of the listeners are actually from outside the United States. So that's super exciting, super fun to me. Of course, I still like all the listeners inside the United States. So thank you. But I remember when I started the podcast, I just thought it was cool that somebody outside of the Carolinas, because I live by Charlotte, North Carolina, which is right on the border between North and South. I just thought it was awesome when somebody outside of the Carolinas listened. So now to know it's been listened to in all 50 states of the United States, and then now over 100 countries. I didn't even know there were 100 countries before I started the podcast. But it's been a very big blessing. I really genuinely appreciate the support, and I appreciate the interaction, the comments, the emails. It's extremely, extremely, extremely motivating. So thank you to anybody who has ever reached out. It does mean a lot. So thank you very much. If you like the podcast, please share the podcast. The more people we share it with, the more people can help. If you like the podcast, please consider donating to support the podcast, which you can do on our website. And if you like the information we share in the podcast, you can find more from us on our social media channels. You can find us and follow us on Instagram and YouTube under the name Brutal Iron Gym. As always, I hope this was helpful, and thank you for listening.